So thinking a little closer to home to Maryland, if any of y'all fish or have friends who have fished, you've probably heard about people getting a fishing license and maybe fishing limits. There's a lot of limits put on what kind of fish you can catch, when you can catch it, how big they can be, and how many you can keep. So let me talk about a couple of these, and we'll use the largemouth and smallmouth bass as an example. There's a size limit for these fish. If the fish is 12 inches or bigger, you can keep it. That's your fish. If they're smaller though, you have to put them back in the water. You're like, well, I don't want to, I want to keep it. Well, the reason why there's this size limit is larger fish are usually older fish, and older fish don't reproduce as much. Sure, they make eggs, they make sperm, but they don't make a lot. But those smaller and younger fish, they actually make tons and tons of sperm and eggs, and we want to keep those in the ecosystem. They're going to be the baby makers. They're the ones that increase that population. However, the bigger ones don't really contribute much, so you can keep them. The largemouth and smallmouth bass also have a fishing season. You cannot fish for them between March and June. This is because that is their peak reproductive season. You don't want to keep any of them, the big ones or the small ones. They're all reproducing now, so by preventing fishing during this time, there's more chance that reproduction will happen. And then finally, the creel limit. The creel limit is just how many you're allowed to keep. For example, for the bass, you can keep 5 each day or 10 overall. So if you have, say, 10 days on a fishing trip, you can only keep 10 on you. Even though you can catch 5 a day, you can only have 10 total. Now, some people criticize this and say, well, I want to keep this, or I want to fish more. Like, this is my water, this is my land. It's not meant to be a regulation. It's not meant to hurt us. In fact, it's there to help us. It's maintaining this fishery for many, many, many years to come. It's maintaining this sport for us. It's also maintaining the ecosystem. You know, the bass eats things, things eat it. It's an important part of the ecosystem. This is the same for hunting licenses and of different animals as well. So next time you hear someone complaining about it, tell them, hey, if we didn't have these limits, people would fish as much as they want, and maybe in 10 years, there would be nothing left to fish. Another type of renewable resource is lumber or trees. We use trees for firewood. That's actually the #1 way we use lumber in the world is for firewood. Furniture, pallets. So pallets are the wood things that we deliver goods on. We use them for paper. We use trees for a lot of things. And once you cut down a tree, you can replant it, or letting the natural ecosystem work, they will replant by seedlings being dropped by other trees. But just like with our fish, humans can use these in a non-renewable way, in almost an inexhaustible way, because we surpass that sustainable yield. In this picture, you're looking at 2 mountains. One mountain that was clear cut, and one mountain that wasn't. One mountain that's pretty pristine. Now, on the mountain on the right, we could get rid of maybe 10% of those trees. But there'd still be a lot of trees around. And the reason that matters is by having all those other trees around, that means you have a lot of seeds around. Those other trees are dropping seeds, which can then develop into a full-grown tree. Whereas here on the other mountain, a company came through and took them all down and left very, very few trees behind. So sure, trees can grow back there, but it's going to take a very, very long time. Probably not in the lifetime of the person who cut those trees down to begin with. And so by doing that, they've made it non-renewable. They're not going to be able to harvest again. And you've also got rid of a habitat. There's no cover here for deer or for coyotes or whatever organisms that are in this ecosystem. Some other effects of doing clear cutting by just getting rid of the landscape is you, as I mentioned before, you lose the seed bank. You're going to make it incredibly hard for new species to develop. You also have a big problem with erosion. Erosion is usually when water, that's usually when we're talking about it, when water runs over a surface and takes soil with it. You don't want to take the soil with it. You want to keep that soil in place. Another reason why trees are incredibly important. Those root systems keep the soil in place, meaning they keep nutrients in place. You have no trees, you have no roots, and therefore the soil gets washed away. This is a satellite image of an area that was clear cut by a river. And all of this orange you see, this is all soil that's being eroded away from that landscape. Sometimes soil has nutrients in it that are okay for trees and land plants, but not okay for ecosystems in the water. And so you'll see that in that soil that gets eroded away, it enters these ecosystems and can pollute these ecosystems. Also, forests are really good at cleaning out the wastewater from humans. We release a lot of chemicals that aren't great for the environment, but forests and the soil in those forests are good filters. You get rid of those filters, you get more polluted streams. As I mentioned before, by clear cutting an entire forest, you also get rid of a lot of habitat for many different organisms. And then finally, you also have an increase in flooding. Because soil can hold a lot of water, and because trees in general need water, you absorb a lot of moisture during a storm event. But you have no trees, you have a little soil, you have a lot of flooding. And that flooding directly affects humans as well as the organisms living in those ecosystems. So what can we do? I mean, we still need trees, we still need paper, still need firewood, we still need money. How can we better be sustainable? How can we reach a sustainable yield where those trees come back and we don't see as much effects of losing all those trees? There's two major ways. The first one is selective cutting. You don't get rid of all the trees. Instead, maybe you choose the biggest trees. And from a forestry standpoint, you kind of want the biggest trees. More tree equals more paper, which equals more money. So maybe you choose, okay, all trees that are this big or bigger will chop down, leaving all the smaller trees. So if you look in this picture, the trees are kind of speckled around. The trees that are left are holding the soil in place. They're also able to drop different seeds so that the trees remaining, or the empty spaces remaining, can regrow pretty quickly. And you also keep some cover, and you kind of keep that ecosystem attached. Another way you can do some sort of sustainable forestry is strip cutting. This isn't as great, but it's not bad. Here you're removing all the trees from an area, but just from a small area. So you're keeping trees uphill or downhill, to the left, to the right. There's still trees surrounding it. You just get rid of one quicker. Now this is really good for the company because you don't have to go through the forest and picking things and measuring things, so more cost effective for a company. But as you can see just in this image, there can be some erosion loss because you're getting rid of a lot of trees in a small area. But again, still much better than getting rid of the entire forest and just completely clear cutting it. So there's different benefits and drawbacks to being sustainable, but no matter what, it's beneficial at least in the long run. Sure, you don't make as much money as fast as possible, but you at least can make more money maybe in 20 years because all those trees will be back. The United States has had an interesting view when it comes to forestry and our ecosystems here. This is an estimate of what our forest cover looked like in 1620, so pretty soon after colonists first arrived in America. Now obviously we don't know for sure, we didn't have maps that looked at all of this way back then, but looking at the soil, we can actually make pretty good hypotheses as to what our ecosystems look like. Now most of you know that we clear-cutted most of the United States. This is 1920, so 300 years later, we have gotten rid of most of the trees. And this was mainly for agriculture. We clear-cutted everything so that we could plant crops. Most of the trees on the East Coast were gone. The forests that you and I see are actually very young forests. It's very, very, very rare to see something that is old, plant-wise, in the United States, because we got rid of a lot of it. a lot of it for agriculture and for resource extraction. Now, we kind of realized what we did, and I was like, whoops. Although this looks really kind of sad, especially compared to what it used to be, we've actually improved. Here's year 2000. We are slowly getting back to the forest cover we once had. Again, you go into these forests are pretty young forests, relatively speaking. But we are fixing it, and that's good. As we saw the problem, we addressed it. We're trying to fix the erosion problems because there's a lot of erosion problems in the United States. We are creating this habitat again, and this is good for us in the long run because we can log these in more sustainable ways and still make those resources.